Pleased to be joined right now by one of the best analysts in all of football. You do great work, GMFB, all over the place. That's the only one I'm going to promote, though. Here's my thing. You're a great mind for quarterbacks. How do you feel about Caleb Williams after his rookie season?
Well, I like Caleb as a football player. I was pretty critical of him before he even started. That I just didn't think what he did in college really translated to what the NFL was, and that's him vacating the pocket out of the back. And he tried to do it all year long, and he was sacked a lot. He tried to make plays, wasn't in timing with what they were trying to do offensively. Also, I think everything that Chicago did was absolutely a failure to him. If you knew that you were teetering on the head coach, fire him before the year starts. Or if it was just a stopgap until you could get Ben Johnson, okay, but don't start Caleb all year. Keep Justin Fields for that year. Let them learn together. If Justin has a great year, great. They go to the playoffs, they get some experience, but you let Caleb learn, and then when Ben gets into town, boom, they're in it together, because Caleb's got a lot of baggage that's pulling on him from this year, so that's just tough. And I know exactly what this feels like. It's exactly the same thing that happened to me. My coach got fired in week 6, went through 3 offensive coordinators, had my third head coach by the time I started my second year. So it's a tough thing to do. You look around the league, and the ones that have the best consistency are usually the ones that usually play well and pan out and have really good football teams. And that certainly hasn't been the case in Chicago, and it wasn't again this year.
But what about bringing in Ben Johnson? I know it was difficult for you. Do you think there's an opportunity for him to be salvaged in this situation?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, the difference for me is they brought in a guy named Mike Riley, who had never had more than or never had a winning record as a coach. What's funny to me with that scenario is you just go out and you invest a ton of money in a quarterback as a second overall pick, and then you decide to go to the Pac-10 conference to get the coach. But you get the coach that's never won more than 50% of his games. You have the other coach who just took a team to a Rose Bowl, who was his head coach in that offense, and you don't offer him the job. It's just weird how teams will go out of their way to not try to do the best right thing for. And I do think finally that Chicago and the ownership process and Ryan Poles has done the right thing. They went and got the best coach out there in terms of scheme. My only fear with him and his collaboration with Caleb is Ben Johnson's offense is really time-oriented. Like, it's timing-based. And as we've seen, Caleb, it does not work real well in timing-based offense. He's moving around. He's doing a bunch of different things. He's trying to make plays with his legs. Like, if he was more in a timing atmosphere last year, Keenan Allen would have had a lot more catches because Keenan is on the spot that he's supposed to be at when he's supposed to be there. And that's what Ben Johnson's offense looks like. So my hope is we hear nothing about Caleb Williams all summer. We hear nothing really going into camp. And we have a guy that has really, when he comes out and plays in the first real time anybody sees him, he kind of looks like almost 180-degree different when it comes to timing, his drop, and things like that. When he's got to be an athlete, be an athlete. But what Jared Goff and Ben Johnson were able to do in Detroit, and the way he was able to scheme it up, that really could give them advantage if their quarterback is willing to change as well.
Yeah, we get an implication, too. Ben Johnson talked about trying to tailor his offense a little bit more towards his personnel. Could there be an opportunity to take what Caleb does well and bring it to the Ben Johnson offense?
Well, the things that he does well, I think, are making plays when stuff breaks down. And with Ben's offense, you shouldn't really have to do that anymore, because he will scheme up a progression in his route that you can be timing proficient on, where you won't have to do that. When you do, he's athletic enough to do it. I don't think you can really do that. I don't think what Caleb does is anything you can base an offense around, because he's just athletic and makes crazy good plays with his legs and his arm. And you shouldn't have to do that if it's schemed up really well. When it isn't, then you become Josh Allen. And like on that final play against Kansas City, where he is absolutely, there's no way any other quarterback in the league wouldn't have been tackled for a sack. He somehow finds a way to get away, but also make an accurate throw down the field to a guy that's wide open. Like, that's what Caleb can do when stuff breaks down. The thing about what Caleb was last year is things weren't breaking down. He was just vacating the pocket way too early. He wasn't going through his reads and his timing, and he just thought that the 300-pounder that he could run away from in college was not going to be able to chase him down from behind. I remember when I learned that lesson the hard way.
Right.
You know, when Warren Sapp just wrapped me down from behind, I'm like, how does this 330-pound guy catch me? Because they're freaks. and it's the reason why they play. And in this division, those guys up front are really, really good. So hopefully he learned a lot this year. Ben Johnson's mindset and the way he puts quarterbacks in positions to be successful, I think that's a big reason why. And you won't have to see so much from what Caleb does off platform, but rather in the scheme of the game.
Gut feel, do you think it's going to work, yes or no?
I do. I think Caleb is more than willing to do whatever it takes to win, and the last couple of years for him has been really foreign to not win. His final year at USC, to not win in the way that they did, especially how they started, to go on that losing streak. I also think through that process they lost all those games and he didn't throw any interceptions. Why is that? I think he was careful with the football, and I also don't think he took a lot of risks. And I think people want to see him take some risks, especially in a year where you knew you were going in a different direction. You take some risks. And there were moments, the Detroit game where he just forgot where he was at, what the time was and everything like that. Eberflus, should have bailed him out of the situation, probably would have saved his job, but he didn't. And everybody kind of got to see that on full display on Thanksgiving Day. I was actually calling the game. Right. Benetti was so good that day on the play-by-play. But I do think he can, and I think Ben can do that. It's just systemically, the organization hasn't been good, so that's going to have to change. And a lot of times a quarterback can come in and change the environment. When the quarterback can't, but is a great quarterback, it has to be the head coach that comes in and changes the environment, and that will be hopefully Ben Johnson in this process.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate all your work, and most of all, I'm really proud of you, what you've been able to do over the years. So keep it up.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.